It's a moonless night in Yorkshire, the winter of 1812. A man stands in a frozen field, his face blackened with soot, a heavy sledgehammer resting on his shoulder. The hammer has a name. They call it Great Enoch. And tonight, Enoch goes to work. Behind him, dozens of men move toward a mill in near total silence. Skilled craftsmen, fathers, churchgoers, about to commit a crime that can put a rope around their necks. Their target isn't a person, it's a machine. Sounds like a story trapped behind glass in a museum, but none of this is new. Right now, the smartest, richest people in technology are telling you the same thing over and over. AI is going to take all the jobs. Maybe that thrills you. Maybe it keeps you up at night. Either way, you've been sold the idea that this is unprecedented, that nothing like it has ever happened. But it has. It happened almost beat for beat. And the people it happened to got a name we still throw around as an insult, without the faintest clue what it actually meant. They were called the Luddites, and they were nothing like what you've been told. Picture the English cloth trade 2 centuries ago. To finish a fine piece of wool, you needed a cropper. A cropper took enormous iron shears, 4 feet long, heavy as a small child, and shaved the rough fuzz off the cloth by hand. Perfectly flat, perfectly even. It took years to learn. These croppers weren't peasants. They were the aristocracy of the textile world. Proud, well-paid, certain their skill would feed their children's children. But then came the machines, the gig mill, the shearing frame, contraptions that did a master cropper's delicate work faster, cheaper, with an unskilled boy yanking a lever instead of a craftsman at the bench. One frame could do the work of several men. The math was brutal and obvious. Wages collapsed, and there was no safety net, no unemployment check, no retraining scheme, nothing. Just the workhouse. Or hunger. Now, here's the part they skip in school. The Luddites were not fools smashing things they didn't understand. They understood the machines perfectly. That was the whole problem. They didn't even hate the technology. What they hated were the terms. They wanted it brought in slowly, fairly, with some provision for the men it replaced. There had even been old laws protecting their trade, but those laws were being scrapped, one by one, in the name of progress. With Parliament against them and the courts against them, the hammer became the only argument they had left. So they organized, in secret. They needed a leader, but a real leader could be caught and hanged. Therefore, they invented one, a phantom. They signed their threatening letters General Ludd, sometimes King Ludd, writing as if he commanded an army from a hideout in Sherwood Forest. King Ludd never existed, but every shattered frame was broken in his name. And the breaking began. Night after night, Nottingham, then Yorkshire, then Lancashire. Masked men stepping out of the dark, destroying the frames, gone before the soldiers arrived. Their hammer, Great Enoch, had a grim little slogan. Enoch made them, so Enoch shall break them. But then, one young cropper pushed it too far. George Mellor, barely into his 20s, furious, magnetic, a true believer. By 1812, smashing machines wasn't enough for Mellor. There was a mill owner near Huddersfield, William Horsfall, who bragged he'd ride up to his saddle in Luddite blood. So in April 1812, Mellor and a few others waited for him on the road home and shot him dead. The movement crossed a line it could never uncross, from breaking property to spilling blood. The state's answer was overwhelming. Parliament made the breaking of a machine punishable by death. Death for damaging a frame. A young Lord Byron rose for his very first speech in the House of Lords and tore into the law, asking how a starving man could fear the gallows more than he already feared his empty table. It changed nothing. The government flooded the North with thousands of troops, and in January 1813, in the city of York, George Mellor and more than a dozen others were marched to the gallows. The movement died on the rope with them. Now, snap forward 200 years. Sound familiar yet? The Luddites weren't the unskilled poor. They were the skilled elite, the ones who thought their training made them safe. Today, it's the coders, the illustrators, the copywriters, the paralegals, the educated middle, suddenly watching a machine do in seconds what took them a career to master. The fight was never really about the machines. It was about who pockets the savings. Sound familiar? The frame didn't hate the cropper. It just made someone at the top richer while the man at the bench got nothing. And then there's the word. We call people Luddites to mean backwards, irrational, scared of the future. We aim it at anyone who dares to ask a hard question about AI. Same word, same move, 2 centuries apart. But here's the thing, I can't stop turning over. We remember the Luddites as the people who lost to the machines. They didn't. Look closer. They lost to a word. The moment Luddite became an insult, the conversation quietly changed. It stopped being a fair fight over terms, who gets the gains, who absorbs the pain, and became a settled question of progress versus backwardness. A question with only one allowed answer. That's the real pattern. The machines never win the argument. The vocabulary does. Whoever gets to name the loser as a fool gets to skip the negotiation entirely. And right now, watch closely. That exact word is being handed out again. Which brings us back to that frozen field and the hammer called Great Enoch. Here's the detail that says everything. Enoch was named after Enoch Taylor, a blacksmith. The same blacksmith whose foundry built the shearing frames the Luddites were smashing. He forged the machines, and he forged the hammers that destroyed them. We always do this, don't we? We build the thing, and then we build the tool to fight about the thing, and the argument outlives them both. So the only real question is who gets to name the loser this time. If you'd rather understand the pattern than get caught inside it, subscribe. Because history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I want to hear what you think we should rhyme next. Drop it in the comments. Enoch's waiting.